Pittsburgh Steelers fans, we are back for the 6th round pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers. My name is Michael Beck, joined by Maddie, Peverell, Dave Schofield, and Geoffrey Benedict. Boy, oh boy, it sounds like the Steelers certainly got a good one and some fantastic value. They get Quincy Roche out of the University of Miami. Before that, he was at Temple. Sack artist on the edge. They finally get their edge rusher, and man, this guy had some high ratings. It seems like a steal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maddie, I'm just going to turn it directly over to you because I don't know if there's anyone more excited about this pick than you are. How are you feeling about this one?
I'm so happy. This is better than Freiermuth, and I won $250 off Freiermuth. This is a terrific pick. This is a guy I previewed in War Room. It was the first War Room. He was in my early mocks. It was a guy that I was going with the 3rd round. I'd forgotten I thought he'd been taken a couple picks beforehand because I'd seen a couple of things on Twitter that were misleading. This is great. This is depth at the outside linebacker position. This is, as you said, sack artist, 30.5 sacks, 45 games, 54 tackles for a loss at the collegiate level, 8 forced fumbles. I mean, you know, there was a lot around Gregory Rousseau out of Miami and what have you, but you got to look on the other side of the line, and that's Quincy Roche. This is a terrific pick, and I think if anyone's sort of feeling a bit of a downer after the fourth round picks that we had, or the 5th round with getting Loudermilk, jump back up and be happy with this one, baby.
I love the enthusiasm. Now, before we went on live, Dave Schofield was saying this guy could play a lot. Dave, how are you feeling about this pick?
Yeah, I love it, except his name, I just completely butchered it in the breaking news podcast because how can you say Roche and not have the accent over the E? So therefore it smells like Roche. So I'm going to not screw it up. I'm going to go with what I mentioned and we put in the knee-jerk article. He is now Q from the U. That's who he is. So I'm kind of like Maddie. He was a guy that was actually on my radar from doing some mock drafts, but as an earlier pick, not here. I didn't even really remember he was there. And to see that name come across, I was like, wow, that's a good thing. He's should have the 2021 role of what Alex Highsmith was in 2020, just right there for the taking. I think he's going to be getting snaps week 1 on a relief rotational level if everything works out well. Well, let's just say he'll have the opportunity to earn that, and I think it's going to be more snaps than the last 3 draft picks. That what he's going to be getting here. It's a position that they needed another guy to play significant time, and I feel like they got it.
Now, Geoffrey Benedict, we just added a guy, 30.5 career college sacks. That is outstanding. What are your initial thoughts on this pick?
I like it. I like it for a backup edge in the situation we're in. I said what we need is someone who is more polished than upside. We need someone who's more ready now. And they grab someone who is high production, who shows good awareness on film. Like this, they got the right guy. This is a perfect fit for what they need. He may not have huge upside, but you never know. If someone's producing and they start producing, that's all that matters. So I like the pick a lot.
Now, Maddie, also before we went on live, you ran through some of the Steelers draft picks rankings in terms of Daniel Jeremiah and a few other people that rank prospects. So you said the Steelers got some significant value, not only in this pick, but throughout their entire draft.
Yeah, it's a great shout, Michael. So if we look at the picks so far, right, we drafted Najee Harris at 24. He was 20 on Daniel Jeremiah's top 150. We then drafted Pat Freiermuth, who was number 46 at pick 55. We got Kendrick Green, who was 105 at 87, but obviously it filled a need for us, and Kendrick Green's higher on other boards. And just because it's a sleepy on some people's board, also you got to factor in that they were starting to think about, and Daniel Jeremiah had already said he's got to convert to center when he released that mock draft, that prospect list. Quincy, or the Q from the U, prospect 121 at pick 216. I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, while you were talking there, like Dave and Jeff, look at Alex Highsmith. We're all really like, oh, what about Alex Highsmith last year? Quincy, like Alex Highsmith coming out of college only had 21 sacks. He had 47 tackles for a loss, only 4 forced fumbles, 5 pass defense. I should have added before too that Quincy, the Q from the U, has 7 pass defense as well. I mean, the guy's done it on paper. And we've drafted him later.
Before we continue on with these conversations on Quincy Roche, got a couple super chats we should get to. First one here from BGPO Football Funk, who puts $1.99 in the tip jar, says, "Here we go. Pittsburgh Steelers going to the Super Bowl." Love it. It was a good pick, so I'm also excited about that one. We also got Keith Barnaby here, who also puts $1.99 in the tip jar. Says Dylan Moses was right there. Alabama linebacker, legit. Now, I'll throw this one over to Dave Schofield because we have seen a number of players fall a little bit here. Of course, Dylan Moses being one of those guys. Does this kind of go to show that the COVID year that maybe the guys in the media and people that aren't behind the scenes don't quite know as much as the guys in the scouting departments?
Yes. I mean, do they, even on a non-COVID year, do they really? I mean, think about it. You're always going to have stuff like this. That's why, I mean, does anyone ever get even just a first-round mock draft correct? You don't. It just because you're asking people, let's just say this. If the people who were breaking this down for us to consume as fans were that good, they would be employed by NFL teams. So not that they're not good, but they're not that good, if you know what I mean. So, I mean, there's some of them that maybe could have been, but they're not. But I'm not even going to get into that. It's simply how it goes. And you talk about the linebacker from Alabama. The Steelers already grabbed an inside linebacker, and they actually have a lot of bodies there already. They needed, I mean, I still feel they could add another edge rusher just because they need more bodies. I think if they don't grab one in the next 2 picks, they're going to have to probably get 1 or 2 as undrafted rookie free agents because they just simply need bodies there. So love this pick. And not only that, this was the one spot. And I know some people are like, oh, well, slot corner. The Steelers have other things they can do for slot corner. They can have Cam Sutton play on the outside in base and slide into the slot with somebody like a James Pierre on the outside whenever they go into sub package. They have options. The only person they had to take on outside linebacker was Cassius Marsh. You know, this was the biggest need remaining, in my opinion.
So speaking of Cassius Marsh and Quincy Roche, Geoffrey Benedict, I'll ask you this one. When it comes to the Steelers depth chart now, how does it round out behind Watt and Highsmith? Is it as cut and dry as the guy with the experience being above them? And how do you kind of figure playing time gets broken down percentage-wise?
Well, the Steelers will list Marsh ahead of Roche because they always list veterans ahead of rookies. But you're going to see a great competition here. And by great, I mean, I expect this rookie to absolutely destroy Cassius Marsh in training camp and preseason. I think Roche is going to be one of those guys, especially in the preseason, who really shows up and looks impressive. He's just that type of player, and I think he's gonna win the majority of the snaps right off the bat.
Maddie, I know this is one of your favorite prospects, so I'm curious if you've seen enough out of him to say whether or not he's also good as a pass defender, stepping back in coverage like we know the Steelers like to get out of their guys like a TJ Watt or even occasionally Bud Dupree was asked to do. So is Quincy Roche strictly a pass rusher, or is he someone that can drop back in his zone?
Yeah, so I mentioned before he had like sort of those 7 pass defense. Look, a lot of his, it's hard because you watch a lot of highlights, right? So like, in terms of these sorts of players, a lot of it is really focused around his pass rush. But I think interestingly, while we're talking there, I pulled up his, RAS score, relative athletic score. He's had a vertical jump of 32.5. That gets him a rating of 6. But his broad jump was an 8.16. It was a massive grade. His broad jump was a 9.11. His 40-yard dash, it was a 4.69. Like at that position, that's an 8.91 ranking. So, I mean, he is athletic. The only thing for me was that his shuttle was pretty average. And then the rest of it, the only reason he got downgraded on his relative athletic score was around his size. But they have him listed there as defensive end rather than that outside linebacker. So, yeah, I mean, look, you probably are expecting to do a bit more of a pass rush. But I think, TJ's got a few more ball skills than we like to give credit for as well. So if they've got this versatility there, we obviously saw Alex Highsmith last year get that interception as well. I mean, Lamar pretty much threw it at his head, but that was what it was.
Still made a nice play on it.
Yeah.
But still, that's right. You got to make the play. And this is the thing. That's how you use people. And I think when we look at the Steelers as well, and I look at some of these defensive ends, some of that, and it was talked about actually with this prospect class. Bucky Brooks was talking about how there are a number of guys that, listed as edge that will play outside linebacker in some schemes that can learn a little bit of that pass coverage. So, I mean, I like what I see from overall as an athletic prospect here.
So, Dave, what do you think of the Steelers' linebacking depth at both inside and outside linebacker now that they have had one guy to either spot?
Well, they definitely had the bigger needed outside. Inside linebacker, it would have been more about if you wanted to upgrade what you were doing. They have the people in place. The question is, how much of those hybrid safety / linebackers do you want to count as linebackers, or are they going to transition those guys, based on their defense? Or is Marcus Allen a linebacker? Is Miles Killebrew a linebacker, or is he a safety? Because he's another one of those guys. Antoine Brooks, that's 3 guys right there that you're not even sure which one they are. So for now, I think Allen's the only one they have listed as a linebacker. I'm not sure. Killebrew might be. I'm not sure. But they have a lot of bodies, I think, at inside linebacker. The only question was if they were trying to upgrade anything. So they addressed that position, and we'll see what they do there. But this was, I still feel like the Steelers are getting a 3rd or 4th round pick now in the 6th round, that this is like having an extra 3rd or 4th on what they did, not just the player, but for what they needed as well. That's why it's just such, to me, it's the best Steelers steal that they've had in this draft.
Geoffrey, as we get to this point in the draft, we see it quite often that these players really round out special teams units. The Steelers have added a ton of players that exceed on special teams. Roche is only going to add to that. What do you think of the Steelers special teams units as a whole, and are they significantly better than they were last year?
Well, see, I thought they were pretty good last year. Like, they were a pretty good team on special teams last year, and adding these guys, I think one of the things it says is you're going to see Robert Spillane not playing special teams as much. Obviously, Alex Highsmith, he's off special teams. You're going to see James Pierre, who was our gunner. He's going to probably be off special teams. You're going to have a good chunk of players who just aren't going to be playing special teams that were last season, and they have to replace them. So I think you're seeing that kind of a focus that the Steelers are saying, hey, we're moving some of these guys up, and we need to replace what they did on special teams. And they're also seeing, I think you're seeing the Steelers draft athletic guys who can play special teams, saying these guys are football players. These guys are football players, and that's kind of the direction we want to go when we're bringing in our depth and our guys that can even have the potential to start in the future.
What's up, Dave?
I have to ask, Geoffrey, you're the Michigan guy, the University of Michigan. Are you familiar with Cameron Cheeseman?
Cheeseman?
Yeah.
He was long snapper.
Long snapper. Just got drafted in the 6th round by the Washington football team at 225.
Best pick ever.
Oh.
Yeah, gotta love that 6th round long snapper.
What was the
I'm sorry, I
long snappers are the best.
Or 225. I don't know
possibly
if
make.
Oh, gosh. Only if Jeff Hartman was in this one.
I wish he was here. I just had to know if a Michigan fan even knew who that was.
Yeah, I recognize the name.
We did that curtain call on Michigan, and honestly, that name never popped up when I was researching prospects. So that is interesting, to say the least.
25.
I'll go around with everyone on this next question here. I'll start off with Maddie. This Steelers draft, does it give you confidence that this team can still compete and be a contender in the AFC North and win this division?
Oh, big time. Big time. I'm obviously we didn't have a 1st round draft pick last year, and, we were excited about the prospect or the opportunity that Claypool had. But coming out of this draft, we've filled a bunch of needs. We've gotten better at a number of different positions. We've just gone and got depth at a really key position for us where we've got 2 great guys. The other thing too is I think you think about this guy, like bringing Q from the U in, like you are going to now put that I guess the extra motivation, if he needed any, on Alex Highsmith to keep performing. There's a guy chasing him down here as well. So this is really good from the Steelers. You know, we obviously upgraded the tight end position. We got the best consensus running back in the draft. I mean, if that's the case, you know, you could do worse from that perspective. We got a guy like Kendrick Green, which is I would start to say like a typical Steelers pick. We went out and got an offensive lineman that we believed in, that fitted what we wanted to do, not necessarily what was the sexy pick in the from an O-line perspective. So yeah, I'm loving this, but at the same time, I want to see them get the next two right as well, because Loudermilk could be the one we look back on and go, eek.
Oh, we're gonna keep going back to that until he proves us wrong, aren't we?
Yep.
Well, Geoffrey, I'll move on to you in the next one. And before we get there, a lot of people are trying to crown the Cleveland Browns offseason champions for the third consecutive year. They're a team improving. They got a good coaching staff going on there now. Is that the team the Steelers got to knock off, or are they still the top dogs in the AFC North?
Only 3 years?
That's what it sounds like, consecutively.
The
Browns
don't
win
they
every
win the
offseason.
draft every year for the last 8 years on the day of the
They
draft?
always win the draft. They always win the draft. They pick a lot of players that, you know, draft guys like. It's almost like maybe they don't know how to scout, or they don't trust their own scouts. I don't know. Maybe their scouts are just taking their money and then like reading them back Mel Kiper's draft board or something. I don't know. But Cleveland always does well with casual people's perceptions, right? And the Steelers are the team that picks guys that you're like, who is this guy? They're never going to work out. And then, you know, the next year when they redraft, a team that had no first round picks suddenly has 3 guys redrafted in the first round. So I'm not worried about the Browns. I'm not worried about the Browns assembling some juggernaut roster that's unassailable, right? I'm more concerned about the Browns because the Browns threw the monkey off their back last year when they beat us in the playoffs, and they're going to come at the Steelers thinking that we're equals now. And the Steelers really, if they're gonna retake the AFC North and kind of put the Browns back where the Browns used to be, they're gonna have to not just win, they're gonna have to really beat them. You know, make them get that idea in their head that, oh yeah, last year was a fluke, but we really can't
Like
beat the Steelers.
38-7 beat them.
Yeah,
Just had to put that out there.
Or just like even end of the game, you're just running down their throats and they can't stop you. You know, stuff where it's just frustrating. Stuff where they're sitting there saying, really, we just can't beat the Steelers, because that's how it used to be. The Steelers, they walk into the game knowing we're gonna lose. Well, we gotta get back to that, and it's a hard road now, because the Browns know they can take us. The Browns know they have a chance to win.
Before we get to Dave on that question, Maddie, I saw you had a bit of a reaction there. Was there something you want to bring up?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is where it's going to be. This is going to be the typical Steeler hate here, from the mainstream media, because it's going to be like, oh, the Steelers. Let's say we do lose a couple of games and what have you. The Browns have got the third strength schedule. So all these picks that they supposedly make, all these players that they bring in, are suddenly looked at in a sort of different light, because people just go, oh, the Browns have got X wins, or they've got X number of stats. It's a different ball game here. Like, we're the ones that are going in. And I think that's what makes me pumped up, back to your question before about this draft class, because I feel like we have prepared for a strength of schedule of a division winning team, a strength of one schedule.
So, Dave, I'll bring this question all the way back to you. Are you happy enough with this Steelers draft that they are still contenders for the AFC North title?
Yeah, I mean, there was times where I was concerned because, and this is yet, I feel in the 6th round like I did in the 3rd round. It's one of those things of, why are you taking this player when you obviously need to address this? And it seems like I have to listen to 2 or 3 picks. Nothing wrong with those picks. But then when you get the next one, like, oh, they had this there, then I'm so glad they grabbed what they did when they had the chance to. I'm so glad they grabbed Najee Harris in the 1st round, although I was not a 1st round running back guy. I'm glad they grabbed Freiermuth in the 2nd round. Freiermuth. I can't even get it out of my mouth, and I even think I know how to pronunciate it.
It's a hard
in the
name
2nd
draft.
round. Muth. Okay, they got him in the 2nd round. But then they get their guy in the center in the third round. And I'm like, that makes so much sense. They have another tackle that doesn't have to play right away and can develop, but could, surprise everybody. Then they get the edge rusher that was a position that was going to need to take snaps in week 1. And they have a guy that has a legitimate chance that I know what Geoffrey says. They're going to put Cassius Marsh ahead of him on the depth chart. So I'm not. When I publish this tomorrow, guess what? He's going in as the number 3 or outside linebacker, because I feel that they got a guy there and just so much value. That's why I'm like, and the other guys they got, even though 2 of them were players that possibly might have not even been drafted, the Steelers felt that they needed to take them there because they thought other people might like them. And did we have to take Deontay Johnson where we drafted him? Yeah, we actually did. Did we have to take, who's that Javon Hargrave guy in the third round? Oh, how about a guy that was starting for them almost right away? Because it depends on which defense was on the field to start. That's the kind of picks that I think some of those other guys could be. And do they always hit on those? No. Do I expect them to hit on all? Was it going to be 9 picks they're going to end up with if they make the last 2? No. There's going to be a couple in there that don't work out, but there's so much potential with those other ones that I really love how this is playing out.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you say that too, because now I think about it. Has it been a clean cut? They went 4 straight offensive players, now defensive players ever since.
Yeah, well,
I think it has been.
Yeah, right. four than 3. Yeah.
So then I guess they're going to go defensive player with their first 7th rounder, and then they take the punter with the second 7th rounder. So then it's just a clean draft, right? I don't know, maybe.
Michael's all in for that one. He's ready for that 7th round. It's not that you don't even want the punter. You just want it for Jeff, don't you?
Yes, exactly.
We're in the 7th round. We're now in the 7th round.
Yep.
Oh, goodness. What, 21 picks till the Steelers are up, I'm thinking? So we're getting there.
45, right? 245?
Yeah, 245.
Okay.
245 and 254.
Okay.
I remember
17 picks.
Yes. So as we rapidly approach that, we'll just go through a couple more things to round out this show. Maddie, I'm curious. Do you think this is the Steelers' steal of the draft?
I don't know. I don't think we expected Frymouth to be there at 55, but this would have to be. Oh, this has to be pretty up there. Yeah. If you've got a player people said he might be taken end of day 2, early day 3 on a lot of different mocks and experts and pundits, talking heads, whatever. We got him at pick 216. I think that's pretty amazing. Like Frymouth, he probably was, no one expected him to be there at 55, but certainly if tight ends started to fall, it was hard because Kyle Pitts was always going to be a top 10 player. So when you look at Frymouth, judging where teams felt about Frymouth and the rest of the tight end class is difficult. A guy like Brevin Jordan at the tight end position, he went in the 140s to the Texans or the Bills. I can't remember which one it was, but he was a guy that was meant to be in the 3rd round. To get a quality pass rush guy like, Q from the U this late, yeah, still the draft for me so far.
Geoffrey, this one going over to you. Do you think this pick, or really in general, what's your favorite pick of the draft so far?
Oh, it's got to be Loudermilk, right?
Oh, interesting. It might be the only person to say that.
No, not that one. I'm probably gonna go with the center in round 3, because they actually drafted a center. That's my favorite pick so far.
Very low bar.
Because if they hadn't drafted a center, I would be.
Speaking of centers, Jimmy Morsi.
I'd be like laying on the side, just crying on camera right now. So yeah, that's gotta be my favorite pick.
I'm seeing the Steelers' name is back on the ticker. So what? I think that makes them 15 picks away. So we should. I think we can get our final thoughts out now and wrap up the show. We'll start with Dave Schofield on this one.
Good, because then I can give my favorite.
Exactly. Quincy Roche. Final thoughts on him.
Well, it's borderline whether this or the center is my favorite pick, just because, like Geoffrey said with the center, just the fact that they drafted one, and it made so much sense after they did it. They're like, oh, that's why they passed on those other guys. There's this guy they could have got here, and he actually fits what they like to do better. So I love that mentality. I love the value they got here. This is value. This is value. I don't think this was the ultimate plan for the Steelers. I don't think they went into this draft thinking, oh, let's get Roche in round 6. No. I mean, honestly, they went in thinking, let's get Kendrick Green in round 3. I'm sure they did. But they weren't thinking they were getting Roche in round 6. I don't believe so. I'd have been ecstatic with this pick if this is who they traded up for in round 5. So that's my ultimate thoughts there. Could he end up being someone that doesn't pan out? Sure. But you know what? It's a 6th round pick. And he could really fit into that category of the Steelers have had some really good 6th round picks. So hopefully he can add to that.
Nobody say Mr. 3rd and 5th's name. Nobody say it. Maddie Peverell, final thoughts, Quincy Roche.
I agree with exactly what Dave said there. I would have been happy with him at 140, 128 even. Like that's the quality of this pick. And then you look at him at like 216, 100 picks on from that. Yeah, this is incredible. And like it was brought up in the live chat, there's guys like Jason Oweh that were taken by the Ravens, no sacks, and then you've got a guy like Quincy Roche, and obviously it's versus the competition that you've got, but like 30 and a half sacks in 45 games, the 54 tackles for a loss. Like, I'm going to say that again because there's serious numbers there. So, yeah, love it. Absolutely love the pick.
Yeah.
I forgot something that Maddie triggered in my brain. Just to throw one of Maddie's because then I got to let Geoffrey go. And that is the biggest thing with Roche, Q from the U, is that he was branded a 3-4 outside linebacker, that was his ideal fit. So that's the key here. Not all college guys are that kind of guy. And that's another thing that adds to it.
Yeah, I think Mike Tomlin even mentioned that in his pro day, or in the pre-draft press conference, I should say. He specifically mentioned that it's harder finding those guys because most teams play 4-3 defense. With that being said, Geoffrey, I'll give you the floor. Closing thoughts on Quincy Roche.
Steelers found their number 3 edge rusher. They found a guy who's going to stick around, and for his entire rookie contract, he is going to complement the edge rush. He's going to be a situational pass rusher. He's going to give you actual production from that spot, not Anthony Chickalo. Well, he's not going to, suck too bad, or Ola Adeniyi, not those guys. He's going to give you something real from that spot, and that's exciting.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be 2 more picks, possibly for the Steelers in the 7th round. We will bring both of those to you on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast from. So make sure you tune into that. Also, make sure you click over to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Tons of breakdown on this pick already, including all the picks from days 1, 2, and 3 of the draft. So make sure you're clicking over, subscribing, following, doing all that great stuff to help support us, help support the show. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you guys very shortly. The Steelers are almost on the clock again. We will see you guys